what we tell them to do instead of what we want them to do, right? Okay, I did click record. All right, so let's suppose now I'm going to make one of those views, right? Let's say I want to do a view for the patient, okay? Let's see how we might use our function in helping us do that. So I'll make a new query window, just so I'm starting fresh. I know this is eventually going to be create view, but you know what? When I'm doing a view, I always just get the select statement worked out first. Then I add create view above it, right? Because that way you can just play around. You don't have that interfering as you're working on the code. So again, just show you using the query editor. Okay, if I add the patient table, now remember those 3 guidelines we talked about. A view to be useful in the front end application should include, first of all the columns, right? So I can check them all. Oh, maybe I'll show you a trick. A little bit of a tip here on using the tool. If I just check off this star, notice down here it just says select star, and that's all I get. But if I highlight this, go back into the designer with the query selected, remember we said it will reload it? Well, it says that was a stupid thing to do. You should never use star, right? So it has fixed it for me and actually has checked them all off. So I see all of them listed properly down in the bottom part here. So that's one way. If you got like 50 of them, instead of check, that's a bit of a trick to get them all selected for you. Okay, so that's the first rule. We want to include everything in the output. Now, how about a summary field? Well, I mean, we could put the last and first name of the patient together, right? That would be one thing. Now, but I probably wouldn't do that here. I'll do that just back in the actual script window itself. But I will add the other table, right? I'll add the doctor table. Oh. Doesn't help if you click cancel or close instead of add. There we go. So here's the doctor table. So what I want to do is, I already have the doctor ID. I wouldn't want to repeat that, right? I don't want that showing up twice. There's no point doing that. But I do need to have the first, middle, and last name. Mind you, I'm going to want it put together probably in a full name format, right? So I'll just check off all 3 for now. Just get them into the output here. So I'll click OK. And that gives me my query here. I'm just going to try and get it on the same screen. So I'm just bringing some of these over. Doctor ID. Okay, so here we have the first name, the middle name, the last name. Right, as expression this, expression that. Okay, so that's how it wrote it for me. But what I know I'm going to do is I'm going to include this in the output, but I want to concatenate it together. So to do that, I will go dbo dot. Oh, by the way, just because I am all about showing you the tips and tricks, remember I have the function here, right? Remember we can drag and drop, so that's another way to get the function up here. Again, the square brackets, but they don't hurt. Right? So doctor.firstname, just have to take out the as business. And that's my first parameter for the function. Middle initial. And last name. I don't know why the red underlining at this point, but you know, sometimes it's best not to worry about it. Let's just try running it, see if we get an error. Oh, yes, of course, we have to say formal or full. What am I thinking, right? So I would probably, if I'm just displaying this information, I would probably want the full name, right? There we go. So just looking here, okay, at the output of my query, right, I see I'm getting pretty close. I've got all the patient information. Now, remember, we can't leave out the doctor ID. It has to be there so that we can actually manipulate that value in the user interface eventually. But I have this extra column named my lookup information, nicely formatted. I should probably give it a bit of an alias after all, come to think of it, right? As doctor. That's probably good enough. Okay. Now, do we need another summary field perhaps? Maybe I should do the actual patient name as well. Create a summary field for that, right? Maybe it's not necessary, but it can't hurt really. So I'm just going to go to the end here, put a comma, and I'll again use my UDF, right? So DBO helps if I spell it right. DBO dot UDF name. Now, of course, yes?
Can I have like a random simple question?
Sure.
How did you get the little like thing to snap all the way to the end of that like paragraph there?
Oh, how did I just pressed end on the keyboard?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. So I can concatenate the actual name fields here of the patient, right? Patient first name. Now, if I just say first name, I'll probably get a ambiguous column name error. So I'll put patient dot first name, right? Now, for the middle initial, I can pass null. Since I don't have any middle initials, there's no such field in the patient table, right? But that's not a problem. And then patient dot last name. And then, of course, I do have to add my qualifier. So maybe I want this in formal name format. And that could be my summary, right? Last name, comma, first name is a single field, nicely representing the patient. The only thing is, I might say, well, you know what? I might end up having two people with the same name, like a mother daughter or like a senior junior type of thing. I could maybe just include the date of birth, okay, or the OHIP number, right, as well. I'll just say date of birth or year of the date of birth. I'll concatenate that on. Oh, I probably want at least something though between them. I don't want that as the next character, right? So something like that maybe. So I'll give the full name and that as patient. Execute. Oh, that darn plus. Okay. That is where that concat function works nicely. Maybe I'll show you that. Obviously, I could just do a cast or convert here, right? But with because this returns an integer, okay, it doesn't like using it with a plus sign because it wants to do math instead of concatenation. So concat works nicely because you can just comma separate the things you want concatenated, and it looks after converting any data types that you need to. There we go. So there's my summary field here, patient, just the last name, comma, first name, okay? The year there, so that if I've got two David Stovels, right? The one born in 1914 as opposed to the one born in 1957, okay, pretty much tell me that they're a generation apart. Help me understand exactly what patient I'm looking at, right? So that's good. This would probably be an excellent view to provide all the data to appear on the screen in a client application. So I might want to create that as a view, so we know how to do that, right? Create view. Be patient as. There we go. So anyway, just an example to see. So the point here is we got around the null, the fact that for the patient table we don't have such a field as a middle name or initial. All we have to do is supply null there, and we know our code in our expression works beautifully. And now that I have that, I can just easily select from it, right? Select star. Oh, let me make it bigger. From V, oh, look at that, V patient. And there's all that data. So this view would be a good candidate for a client application to be pulling data from this. Gives you everything you need up on the screen, plus all the values you need for later on doing updates and so on. And away you go. Any questions about that? Yes. No. We would do the insert on the table itself, right? Yeah, good question though. Okay, my point was that when you're going to do an update to the patient table, we have to have all the original values for all the columns because we don't know which one or ones the client might change, right? And when you do an update command with a stored procedure, you know, it'd be too much work to worry about checking which ones have changed and which aren't. So you just normally replace them with all values coming from the client. So most of them probably haven't been changed. But this way we don't have to care whether they've been changed or not. We just replace all the values, except for the primary key, right, with values coming from the client application. So much of the data will just do a turnaround trip, right? It'll come from the database and just go back and be put back in same value as it was. But in that process, it gives it a chance for the client to actually change some of the values and update those. Programmatically, you might say, well, it's better to actually check and see what's changed, but that actually adds much more overhead to the system than simply doing that, allowing it to have all the data so it can just put it back again exactly the way it was if it's unchanged. Okay? Good question, though. All right. Well, I'm going to stop recording there.